we're talking some project successes, a big old project failure, and some updates on some whips you've seen and some you haven't. So if that's what you're interested in, please keep watching. Hello and welcome to Stitches and Starlight. My name is Tashiana, but you can call me Tashi because that's what all my friends do, and we're friends now. I'm coming to you from my home in Brooklyn that I share with my husband Joshua and the two hell kittens, actual cats, not humans. And this is my corner of the internet where we talk about all the things I'm making, whether I'm knitting or spinning or sewing or potentially weaving. It is just fiber joy and wool chaos all the time. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for clicking on the thumbnail. There are a million voices vying for your attention on the internet, and you saw whatever this is and decided to give it a go, and that makes you a rad human. If you're a returning viewer, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for boarding my vessel to fiber galaxies near and far. If you are a stowaway, if you have like a boarding pass, if you have whatever, however you found your way here, thanks for being here on my ship. I am the captain, and we're gonna go on an adventure. So yeah, so that's what we're doing today. Today we're doing sort of a traditional podcast update. So we will be doing talking about some finished objects. We'll talk about some whips. We'll do a little bit of, I'm going to be trying to remember to do this on a regular basis. I'm going to add some media mayhem, and we'll talk about a thing that sparks joy. And then we'll call it done. But before we do that, let's talk about what I'm wearing. So this is my creativity shawl, actually. I'm going to pull it up a little bit. This is my creativity shawl. If you watch my everything I made in 2026 that's this year, Tashiana. If you watch my everything I knit in 2025 video, we are ahead of ourselves. Wow. Everything I knit in 2025 video, you would have seen this snuck in. This is what happens to me when I get a little bit like discombobulated, is everything else I say sounds like straight nonsense. It's going to take me like 2 or 3 minutes to adjust. But this snuck in at the tail end of 2025. I think I finished this December 26th. December 27th, like tail end of 2025. This is a test knit from my friend Tori Yu, Tori Knits NYC. And this is very much a choose your adventure pattern. So it is one of those patterns where you increase, 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 and then decrease, decrease, decrease. And it's written for any gauge. So it's written to be fingering, sport weight, DK weight, or worsted weight. I did knit the DK weight version. And then there's a long size and a short size. And I picked the long size because one, I am long. I am, if this is your first time here and you don't know, I'm a giant. I'm 6 feet tall, so I picked the long size because I wanted space and room to play with color. And also I just thought it'd be cool. My lights are falling, so things are changing. Hold on. Okay, I hope that's where we're supposed to be, but like I have very poor natural light. I live in an apartment in the city, and my windows are behind me and they are covered with my yarn wall. And then also with the way the windows are facing, we just don't get good natural light. So I always rely on artificial lighting, and I was watching my light box slowly drop. And then I was watching all the lighting in the camera slowly shift. And I was like, we have to stop and fix that. What was I saying? Yes, so I knit the DK weight because that's what I'm saying. I'm long. I'm 6 feet tall, so I wanted the long version. Also, I wanted to be able to like wrap it up. It's very long. So the long version is 90 inches. So you knit it to 45 inches and then you start decreasing. I memorized this after like 3 repeats. It is a very easy pattern to memorize. It is a lovely canvas to play with color. I'll actually take mine off so I can show it to you, and then I'll put it back on because I do like wearing it. So I talked about this briefly in my Everything I Knit video. So if you've seen this already and you're not interested, feel free to skip ahead. But my main color is leftovers from my Rhinebeck cardigan. If you haven't watched that video, I did have a video go up last week where I talked all about my Angelica spin. So I will put, the thumbnail, and I will link it in the video, the description box. But I talked all about the spinning and knitting my Rhinebeck cardigan. This is where the leftovers went. So my main color for my shawl is leftovers from that cardigan. And then my contrast color is a chain plied 50-gram skein of my Tour de Fleece colorway, Dreaming by Firelight, from Christopher and I, our 2024. That's how time works. Our 2024 Tour de Fleece team that Adrian at Hello Yarn dyed for us. So we had a custom colorway for our team, and it was called Dreaming by Firelight. I have so much of that. I have three bags of Corriedale, and I have a bag of Targhee Bamboo Silk. This is the BFL. So I'd gotten all the bases. I got 1 bag of BFL, 1 bag of Targhee Bamboo Silk, and then 3 bags of Corriedale for a bigger project. Like I said, this is the bamboo, This is the BFL, and I spun 2 versions of it. I spun a fractal and I spun a chain ply. I can actually show you the fractal, hold on. So when we were like launching the color, I spun 2 versions of it so people would see what it looks like spun up, because sometimes you get a braid and you're not sure what it will do. So this is the fractal version. I did a 2-ply, and that's what it looks like as a 2-ply fractal. I did a 1-4 fractal. So 1 ply is spun straight off the top, and then the other ply I split 4 ways to get shorter color repeats. So that's what it looks like if you mix the colors. This is what it looks like if you keep the colors pure. So that's 50 grams of 2-ply fractal. This was 50 grams of chain ply, and you can sort of see the real discrete color repeats as the color was shifting. And I thought that this would be a really cool canvas for a chain plied yarn. Now, some of the testers did some really, really cool things. There was one particular tester who used 2 different hand spun skeins for her shawl. And I think I'm gonna knit a smaller version of this, do the shorter version, and do the 2 hand spun skeins, because then both colors are shifting at the same time. So mine, the gray is sort of the fixed because it's a fixed color, and then it's chain plied stripes, but I do like the way it looks when both colors are shifting. This is typically how I wear it. So I have the triangle, the widest part, dead center, and then I wrap it. And then when I'm wearing it under my coat, I tie this in a knot, and then I tuck the tails underneath like that. And then it fits up under my coat, and then I can like sort of puff it up depending on how much coverage I want around my neck, or sort of let it hang if I don't want a ton of coverage around my neck. And then if I'm just wearing it out and about like a shawl, I just let the tails hang. Now, I will say, I need a little bit of practice with these like single side increases, because you can sort of see that it's like curving a tiny bit right here at the end. I did try to pin it out and block it out, but it is curving a tiny bit on both sides. And that's just because of the way you increase and you decrease. You are holding the contrast color the entire time. And I just need a little bit more practice with my tension so it doesn't do that. But even while it's hanging, I don't think it's super noticeable, but that is a thing that I noticed about my own work, and I thought I would say that. I love this. It is so soft. It is so easy to wear. I love having more and more hand spun accessories. I'm still, adding hand spun garments to my wardrobe, but hand spun accessories are so easy because they just don't take a lot of yarn. This took total 637 yards. I think it's 214 yards of my contrast color, and I think I used like 430 yards of my main color, but all these stats are in Ravelry if you want to see it and see more pictures, and the pattern is out. So I will link the pattern in the description box if you want to grab it. Tori is an excellent designer, writes really well-written patterns. This will come up again later this episode. And it was a joy to test for her. This is also the first time Tori had a Discord chat, and it was really fun to see everybody working on it and like hype other people up and talk color pairings, talk yarn pairings. I almost went with a neutral version of this. I knew that I was going to use Angelica's yarn, but I almost went with a fleece for my main color. For my contrast color, and I'm very glad that I went with the color shifting yarns. I can play with more color. I know that this and my jaunty are probably gonna be neck and neck for the most wears. They both sit outside on top of my coat, and I just like, depending on the day, just pick which one, because they're the exact same size. They're both 90 inches, and they serve different needs. Like the jaunty is a little bit squishier and warmer, and this is a little bit lighter and easier to wear. So based on like the weather, I either grab the jaunty if it's gonna be like a little bit more brisk or windy outside, and if it's not as windy, then I grab this one, and they work beautifully. So I know that these two are probably going to be neck and neck for most worn pattern this year. But yeah, the Creativity Shawl is out in the world if you want to make one for yourself. So let's talk finished objects. We're going to do the 2 that went well first. And then we're going to do the one that, I was talking to my friends about filming this episode, and one, not rage crying and not sad crying, because I've been doing both. So let's start with the projects that went well. So the first project I'm going to show you is a test knit. So this is the honey pot beanie, and I tested this for Alex of Skinny Dipping, and I loved this. So I saw Alex posting pictures to her stories when she was working on it. And when she did the call for testers, I was just like, I could do this. I could bang this out in a few days. Like I could easily make another beanie. I love this. So here's my yarn. So my main color is No Mourners, dyed by Plies and Hellhounds. And this is on Gabby's Traveler worsted base. This is a non-superwash Targhee base. Y'all, this yarn is decadent, and it has the crispest stitch definition. And then my mohair is Knitting for Olive Soft Silk Mohair, and this is in the color Soft Rose. And the cool thing about the honey pot beanie is you essentially are getting like a reversible hat, but you have a, how do I explain this? It's so fun. It was wildly fun to knit. So like it reminds me a lot of like the Oslo or the Muscle Burra, but instead of it being all the way fold out, this is just what it looks like all the time. So you have it, this is on the mohair side, and then you can have it on the wool side. So I could wear it, if I didn't want the mohair out, I could wear it flipped up like this and I just have a solid wool hat in Gabby's Very Fun Yarn. Here's the color, so you can see it's a very fun tonal. And you can really see that stitch definition in the Targhee. And if I don't want to wear it that way, then I wear it with the mohair out with the flipped brim. And then that's what it looks like with the mohair out. I'm going to put it on and then we'll talk some more about it. Y'all, this hat is so cute. Oh my God, this hat is so cute. So I knit the adult large and I knit it on size 8 needles. I'll tell you quickly the yarn I use, and then we'll talk about pattern construction, and I'll give you some more, like some of my, not necessarily tips, just some of my feedback. I love this hat. It's so much fun. So like I said, this is called the Honey Pot Beanie. My version on Ravelry is called Sand and Sea. So when I was picking colors for this, you only need 1 skein of mohair, like a 25 gram, and I did not use much at all. So you don't need, you could use scraps for this essentially, but you need essentially a full skein of worsted weight yarn, and then half to a full skein, not even a full skein, half of like a 25 gram donut of mohair. And when I was going through my like yarn wall behind me, I was like trying to come up with like word pairings, and I kept coming back to sand and sea, sand and sea, sand and sea. So this is my Sand and Sea Honey Pot Beanie. I use 78 yards of my Knitting for Olive mohair. So I used 8 grams, like no yarn. I use 8 grams, and I use 156 yards of my Traveler worsted, which I think is pretty much in line with what Alex recommended for the largest size. I knit this to pattern, no modifications at all. So the way the hat works is you start in your worsted yarn and your wool yarn, and you do a pinhole cast on, which I hated. I hated every second of it. And I think a lot of that has to do with me knitting left to right and trying to mirror knit all the videos that I watch. I've learned how to do it, and I can do it again. I probably can't. That's not true. I will probably have to watch 18 more videos to do it again. I did it. I despised it. I like the effect. I despise that cast on. So you do the cast on and then you start increasing. And Alex has you do a really interesting increase that I've never done before that I don't know that I would do again. So normally I do make one lefts and make one rights. And Alex has you increase with yarn overs. So you either do like a yarn over the normal way, or you do a yarn over the opposite way. Like, again, because I wrap my stitches differently. So whatever way you normally wrap your yarn overs, you wrap it that way, and then you wrap it the opposite way to make left leaning and right leaning increases. This looks fine. It doesn't look fine. It looks better blocked, but because this is not the way I normally do increases, I think my tension's a little funky. So I guess you can see. I mean, I guess it looks fine. It does look fine. I'm being, but you can sort of see that. I'm being a little bit harsh on myself. And it was not my cleanest increase work. And I think it was just because I was not used to working this sort of increase. And once you increase to the number of stitches for your size, then you just knit in the round. And I followed Alex's row counts verbatim. I did not make any modifications. I did not swatch for this. This is a hat. But I followed Alex's row counts verbatim. And once you get to a certain row count, you do some ribbing, and then you do more knitting, and then you do the thing that I think is in some of like the Oslo. I think it's like in the Oslo. I've never knit the Oslo, but like a lot of hats have you do like a little bit of double knitting, so you get a fold. So you do the double knitting, and then you do a fold, and then you switch to mohair. So you do the double knitting, you knit a fold, and then you pick up your mohair, you switch your mohair, and then you knit and you decrease. And I will not be talking anymore about the construction of the pattern because it's a cool pattern and I don't want to give away Alex's tips and tricks, but there's a lot of cool things in here to help this make sense. But at the end of the day, it's attached. Which helps keep the mohair from stretching out. So it's not like the Muscle Burra or a hat like that where you can separate it. It is just always attached. And then when you wear it, because you have this folded brim and you fold it again, it is a triple fold brim. It is such a warm hat. In fact, I will not be making hats going forward that don't have a triple fold brim. I have been spoiled by this triple fold brim. I have worn it every day since I finished it. I cast it on. I'll give you some more stats about this. I cast it on January 5th, and it was off my needles on January 11th, and it took me 10.5 hours to knit. Oh, I will put up my like knitting pie chart for the last 2 weeks. Since I'm doing these podcasts, since I'm doing like the traditional knitting style podcast every 2 weeks, I will put my pie charts for the last 2 weeks so you can sort of see where my knitting time went and what I've been working on. But this took me 10.5 hours to knit. I actually took it to D&D one night. I did like a pickup game at like a local game store. And so once I had it cast on and I was done the increasing, I took it to D&D one night and I was able to do all the stockinette in the 3 hours I was playing D&D. I was playing a paladin who just loved a cause, and is willing to cause a ruckus for that cause. And it was a very fun game and I really enjoyed that. And then I will say, this has taught me that I don't like knitting mohair single. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. There's no elasticity in mohair, so it's very hard for me to tension. So I kept having to like tension it and then retension it. And then at one point I was like, should I knit this English? And I was like, that's also bad. So I did knit it continental and I just struggled. But it's not a lot of knitting that you do in just a mohair, so it wasn't the worst. But I don't know that like people who knit mohair held single or mohair held double for garments, are y'all okay? Because that is not a thing that I will be doing. And I'm glad I learned that on this hat, so I never attempt it. But yeah, this is my honey pot beanie. I think Alex said that this is launching in a week or so. So I will post pictures to my Instagram. I haven't even taken finished object pictures yet because all I do is wear it. It's so fun. It's so fun. It also fits my head really well. I have a huge noggin. I have a huge noggin with my hair, depending on like how big my hair is that day. I have 25 inches circumference. This fits so well. Also, I love the thickness of the brim. It's just the right size for me. It covers my ears. It feels really snug. It doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. I'm really, really pleased with this hat. I'm glad that I tested it. I would definitely make it again in some fun colorways. I saw somebody do like a neon version. I was like, oh, how fun would it be to do like a dark yarn with like a neon mohair over top? I would definitely make this again, and I highly recommend you look for it when the pattern comes out. All right, we're gonna see how long I can keep on my knits before I melt to death. So the other thing that I finished is another accessory, and these, funny story, these were a rage cast on because after the project that I'm going to talk to you about next went so poorly, I rage cast on some black cabled fingerless mitts because I don't like myself and I enjoy sufferation. So that's what happened here. And then these weren't suffering at all. These were so much fun to knit, and I knit them in 2 days. In fact, I knit the second mitt in, 3 days. I knit the second mitt in one sitting, just locked in, put on an episode of Critical Role, and then I had a second mitt. So these are the Cityscape mitts by Tori Yu. And I will put them on, but that's what they look like. And I'm showing you cables in black yarn, and you're probably like, Tashiana, have you lost your mind? I don't know that you can see any of the details in this, but this is a 2x2 rib mitten with some cables going up the back. I'll put them on. Okay. I love these. So, dude, I'm tricked out. I'm tricked out to go in the cold. It is brick in New York City. So I'm glad that I'm making some some cold weather accessories to keep me warm. So here's what the Cityscape, can you see the cable? Probably not. Probably not, because I knit them in black yarn, again, because I enjoy sufferation. But here are my Cityscape mitts. So I'll give you some quick stats and then we'll talk about the yarn I use. These took me 7 hours for the pair, so about 3.5 hours per mitt. And I use size 4 needles, which is the recommended needle size for the pattern. And I use a total of 239 yards. I use yarn health double for this. So this is written for DK weight. I use yarn held double, and I actually have enough yarn to make the matching hat. When I picked this particular yarn pairing, I wanted to make sure I had enough yarn to make the matching hat, and I do. So this is Biche et Bouche Le Petit Lambswool in the color black, and this is a Sire alpaca lace. And it's a plied yarn, but it's a lace weight plied yarn. So it's the alpaca 1, that's the alpaca lace, also in black. And I held them double for a DK weight gauge. And I love this. I love this. This is my first time working with the Le Petit Lambswool, and it's my first time working with that alpaca lace. Like I said, the pattern is written for DK weight yarn, and I figured I'd hold them double for gauge, but I didn't want to hold double for like with the floof, and then I remembered I had that alpaca lace, and they fit really well. The only modification I made was to make them considerably longer than they are in the pattern. So in fact, I knit the first one and I bound it off. And then when I ripped out my bind off, I did not pick up my stitches cleanly because apparently I can't do anything right these days. So I didn't pick up my stitches cleanly, and it's a little bit wonky in some places when I put it back on the needles. But you know, Tori, these are a one size fit all pattern, by the way. I have giant hands and they fit my hands. So if they fit Tori's hands and they fit my hands, I'm sure they will fit a variety of hands. But you cast on, you knit, you do some gusset. Y'all, look at my gusset work. Dude, Look at how clean my gussets are. You cannot see that because it's in black yarn because I am a lunatic. But you knit your gussets, you put your thumb stitches on hold, and then you knit your top of your mitt essentially. And I knit mine to pattern, bound it off, and realized that they were too short. Tori essentially has you do 16 rows and then bind off. And mine stopped about here, bound off. And I kept looking at the pictures of them on Tori's hand. And on Tori's hands, they come up to about like, on some of the pictures, to like mid pinky. And that's what I wanted. And mine were stopping, like it hadn't even started covering my pinky fingers. And then that's because I realized I have, you know, giant hands. So I picked them back up, and instead of knitting them to 16 rounds, I followed the repeat, but I knit them to 28 rounds instead, and then did the bind off and did the exact same thing for the second mitten. But even with extending my mitts, I used 110 yards of the Bisha Bouche lamb's wool and 131 yards of the alpaca one. So a total of 239 yards. The pattern says you use, I think, 125 yards of DK weight yarn. So even with extending it, I'm still coming in under what Tori says you would need. And I know most patterns allow for overages and blah, 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 blah. I did not check gauge on this because, again, they're fingerless mitts and they fit and I'm happy. So there could be that my row gauge is a little bit off, but either way, they fit and I'm happy and I'm really pleased. And I think I'm going to cast on the Cityscape hat in the same black yarn pairing, so I have a matching set. And if I can get my hands on more of this particular pairing, I know Brooklyn General has the alpaca one and they have the petite lamb's wool. So if they have more, I might actually make the Cityscape cowl and have a full matching set. If you do decide to purchase the Cityscape mitts, Tori does have a deal where you can buy 2, get 1 free. So you can get the trifecta and only pay for 2 of the patterns, which is what I did. I just wanted the mitts and the hat, but then I was like, well, why not get the cowl for free and just have all 3 patterns in case I decide I want to make the cowl later. I would definitely make these again. I'm not a gift knitter, but like if somebody wanted fingerless mitts, I would make these. I have like sensory processing things. I don't know that like full wool mittens are the vibe for me, but I do love a fingerless mitt. Could wear them at work. I could wear them at home. Are they the most practical thing for when you're outside? Not really, but then I could tuck my hands in my pockets if my fingers really do get, if my fingers really do get cold, I could tuck also this is because I'm a freak. I've just been doing this when I go outside, which fully defeats the purpose of having fingerless mitts, but I do that every now and then. But yeah, this is my other finished object, which is a pair of Cityscape mitts by Tori. All right, I'm gonna take all this off and we're gonna start talking about where I went wrong. Because my God, I went really wrong. So my other finished object is my Lana vest, and it is unwearable. And I have been fully going through, if you're familiar with DABDA, it's like the 5 stages of grief, so you have denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I have been fully going through the 3 middle stages of DABDA with this vest. So here's my Lana vest. This is a pattern by Irene Lynn. I knit it out of Juliet. I finished it this week. I was really pleased with it. And then I realized that it is 58, oh my God, there's so much cat hair on this. My cats are just everywhere. It is 58 inches across when it was supposed to be 52. And at 52 inches was already going to have 10 inches of positive ease. So at 58 inches, it now has 16 inches of positive ease, and it is unwearable. I'm going to put it on quickly so you can see it, because I'm sure someone out there is going to be like, well, how big is 16 inches? I'll show you. Okay, so here's my Lana vest. Here's where the armhole is on both sides. So it is, I love the length. The length on it is great. It is just, it's too big. If I hold my arm out, you can sort of see like the armhole gapes, and it gapes considerably. And if the fabric was this big, but it didn't gape so much, I might try it, but it gapes a lot. And when I have my arms down, it folds and it buckles. It's too big. It's too big. And I'm really sad about it because this is my first all over cabled project and I was fully prepared to love it, and it's too big. The center of it fits great, which is why I know exactly what the issue is, and we'll talk about what the issue is. So let's talk about where, how do I talk about this? So we'll talk about where I went wrong and where I think the pattern might have done me a disservice. So I am a diligent swatcher. I don't make anything these days without swatching, and these days I'm knitting 5x5 swatches. which is probably larger than you need. But these days I'm knitting 5x5 swatches, and sometimes I swatch twice, and I don't cast on anything without swatching because I know that's going to be something that comes up is people will be like, well, did you swatch? I swatched on the recommended needles. And in fact, my gauge is under what Irene recommends. So this was supposed to be an 18 stitch gauge. I got 19 stitches on 9s. I will tell you where I went wrong and where I think the pattern did me a disservice. Irene has you swatch in stockinette, and there's no stockinette in this. And you don't know what you don't know. So I tell people all the time I know enough to be dangerous. I don't consider myself an advanced knitter. I don't consider myself like an expert knitter. I think I'm an intermediate knitter at best. I've made enough things that I think I could call myself an intermediate knitter, but you don't know what you don't know. And this is my first time knitting cables, and it's my first time knitting texture. And after this happened, and I was essentially crying to all my friends, and I told them that I swatched in stockinette and the whole pattern is knit in moss, everyone was like, well, you should have the tension for the moss stitch. And so that's why I think that the pattern did me a disservice, is the tension for the moss stitch is not given anywhere in the pattern. I think the assumption that Irene makes is that there is a reliable correlation between your moss stitch and your stockinette. And clearly for me, there isn't. Because again, I swatched. I can get you my swatch. Yeah, I did a full 5x5 swatch. I have row gauge and I have stitch gauge based in stockinette. But again, nothing is in stockinette. All of the non-cable sections are in moss stitch. And I think my cables sit centrally on my body. So like if I didn't have the tension issues in the moss stitch, this would have fit. So there is that. The other thing is, and part of the reason why I picked this vest is there are like 700 examples of it on Ravelry. So I was like, okay, this seems to be a pattern that people make pretty often. I went through and I read it. I didn't see any big issues. After mine didn't fit and I was going back to see what all the issues were, I was going back to see what the comments were. No one made the size Irene recommends making. Everyone sized down. And some people sized down several sizes. I was really interested in what 10 inches of positive ease would look like because I liked Irene's sample. So that's why I picked the size that I picked. But it doesn't seem like anyone picked the size that Irene recommends. So there's a universe where even if other people were having tension issues, your vest will still fit if you're making a size smaller than the designer says that you should, because like you'll still get, even if you end up with more ease than you should get in that size, essentially your vest might still fit. So if I had sized down and made like a size 2 instead of a size 4, this would fit. But again, I am a rule follower and I don't do pattern mods because I don't know enough about doing pattern modification. So I wanted 10 inches. I picked the size that said knit 10 that you would get for 10 inches of positive ease. I swatched in stockinette because that's what the designer said to do. I got gauge. I swatched a second time to make sure that my gauge was on because I knew that there was going to be a lot of work into this. And it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. It's too big. So I'm at the place where I'm debating attempting to shrink it, which is like risky. I knit this in Juliet, so I know that I can shrink it. So I'm at the place where I'm either attempting to shrink it or I don't frog. Frogging and reknitting is not my ministry. I know that that's the thing that people do. Frogging and reknitting is not my ministry. Also, there's a bunch of ends in here because it's a split hem. So you cut your end, you cut your yarn, you do your split hem. There's a bunch of ends in here. I will not be frogging. I will not be frogging, and I will definitely not be reknitting this. There's too much resentment in this for me to be reknitting this. I also don't have anyone in my life that is anywhere near this size that this would work on them. So it is either I shrink it or I throw it in the garbage. And what Joshua had to talk me out of doing was I had a rotary cutter earlier this week and I almost cut it into pizza ribbons because I was so angry at it. So I'm going to preach to myself because sometimes I say that the finished object is the lesson. And for this vest, the finished object is the lesson. So we'll talk about what I've learned. What I've learned is I will not be knitting a pattern where you don't swatch in the pattern that you're going to be knitting. And again, that seems like a no-brainer to say it out loud, but you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know that that was the thing that you should do. I was just like, if this is what the designer told me to swatch in, this should make sense. So going forward, I will not be doing that. And like the only thing that I've knit that was in texture before this was the Anna Cordes pullover. And Michelle does have you swatch in broken rib, which I did, but everything else I've knit, you've seen everything that I made last year. Everything I've knit is in stockinette or colorwork. And the colorwork is essentially stockinette. So like, I will not be knitting a pattern going forward where the designer does not give you the tension for what most of the stitches are. And if I cannot swatch for the tension that most of the stitches are, that's just not a thing that I will be knitting. And it is a hard lesson to have learned, but I've learned it and I've internalized it, and this will not be happening to me again. The other thing I've learned is and this is not a thing that I want to do, but I'm going to be trying to implement a mid-project block in I think all of my knits going forward, especially since I have a Panda spin dryer, so I don't have to wait for anything to dry. Like, everything dries in like 6 hours. I do a wet block, I put it through the spin dryer. I bought the spin dryer for washing wool, but it works perfectly for blocking. This was dry in 6 hours, so I put it through the spin dryer, and then by the time I laid it out to dry, I went to work and I came home and it was dry. So I don't even have to worry about like putting a project on hold for like days if I was waiting for like normal blocking and drying time. Everything dries in like 6 to 8 hours. So I will be implementing a mid-project block, because had I blocked this, even after I joined it in the round, I would have realized it was too big. But I didn't, because I don't. That's just not a thing that I do. I normally knit. Mia and I have talked about this. Mia was like, you don't try on your knits. And I was like, no, I don't try on anything until it's off my needles. That is a me problem. And that is a thing that I will be rectifying going forward, because again, sometimes a finished object is a lesson, and I've learned my lesson. Because had I tried this on when I joined it in the round, I would have realized it was too big, and I probably would have ripped it back then and like either gone down a needle size and knit a smaller size, or gone down a needle size and knit a smaller size. And I didn't try this on until it was finished, and by then it is too late to do anything. So I will be trying on my knits more often, and I will be blocking. And the part of the reason why I don't try things on is I don't enjoy the process of putting things on barber cord. Like, I don't enjoy it. Well, one, barber cord aggravates all of my sensory issues. Just handling it gives me the ick so much. Like, when I have to put stitches on hold, I put stitches on hold on barber cord for like sleeves and stuff, and just sometimes when it touches my hands as I'm knitting, woo, almost sends me to the stratosphere. I don't like it. So the idea of having to put things on barber cord and then like transfer things on and put them on is sometimes too much for me. And then to do that to block it. But this was so disappointing. It is still so disappointing. And I am sad mad. That is how I talk about it. I'm sad mad. I'm sad that it happened. I am mad that it happened. And there's nothing to do but to go through it and to figure out what's on the other side. So yeah. So I'll be implementing mid-project blocks. Now it's too late on a lot of the things that are already waiting for sleeves. But going forward, I will probably, especially if it's like a yoked thing, like once I knit like an inch or two into the body, I will be stopping and I will be blocking it and making sure that I'm happy with the fit before I, get to stockinette island. And especially if I'm making a cardigan where it's like stockinette flat, I will definitely be doing a mid-project block going forward. So yeah, that is my Lana vest failure. And I will not take a pizza cutter to it, but I might still try to felt it. I was reading up like how to shrink wool, and I might put it in the dryer and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, if it shrinks too much, then my sister can wear it. She's smaller than me, but no one's wearing it now. No one's wearing it now. Nothing's happening with it. I'm just angry at it. So what's the worst that can happen? It shrinks too much, then it's a failure. And it's already a failure now. So like, I'm at the stage in the game where I have nothing to lose. Like, I literally have nothing. I think you can see it in my eyes. I'm looking at myself in the camera and I'm like, Tasha, you got to talk yourself off the edge. I'm at the stage where I have nothing to lose. So like, let's play a game. Let's play a game. I've already played the game and I lost. So let's play another one. Let's see what happens. Okay, I have 3 works in progress, so I grabbed all of them. They're not in like project bags because I've set up like a little knitting corner, and I got a giant bucket that I should show you how big the bucket is. I have a giant bucket, so I just throw all my whips in the bucket and I just pick the whip up that I want to work on. So I'm going to quickly show you what I've been working on besides the things that I finished. Okay, so first project is my creativity shawl. The neck thing make along. I was like, there was a thing I was supposed to talk about. My creativity shawl is my second project for my neck thing make along. If you are not familiar, hosting is not the word. I am facilitating a neck thing make along where it's just pick a neck thing, make a neck thing. The neck thing make along ends January 31st. So if you watch this at any point between now and then and you have a thing going on that you can't get done, there's still time to join us. And then at the end of the make along, there will be a Google form that you can enter your project in for a prize. I finished my Quaking Aspen shawl, which I would have shown last week. I finished my creativity shawl and there was a little bit of time left, so I cast on a third neck thing. So this is a poet scarf. Yeah, look, my lace looks so good. This is a poet scarf by Sari Nordland. And this is not a thing that I planned, but not only are all of my neck thing projects from handspun, all of my neck thing projects are from fleece, which is just a happy accident. My Legion shawl is from Romney. My creativity shawl is from Angelica, and this is from a Parendale lamb, and this is actually from my sample. So I still have so much of this fleece. I have not finished processing it. I've given so much of it away because I bought the whole thing like a lunatic, and it was a 7-pound fleece. I've given more than half of it away, so I think I'm left with like 2.5 pounds maybe clean. It's clean. I just haven't finished processing it. But this was my sample. And when I sampled, I like really got excited about this spin, and I spun a 125 gram sample. And normally when I sample, I spin like a 25 or 30 gram sample, but I spun a 125 gram sample because I really liked Parendale. If you're not familiar with Parendale, if I remember correctly, is a Romney Lincoln cross. And has the best of both worlds. It's a really like lustrous yarn. I mean, really lustrous fiber, long staple. It is definitely on the higher end of medium, but I don't think it's crisp enough that I would call it a long wool. But also this was a lamb fleece, so it is fairly soft for the breed. And it spun up like a dream. And because it's a long wool, there's halo and there's luster in there for days. Like, get in that color. There's halo and there's luster in there for days. So I had this 128 gram, 250 yard ball of yarn, and I've just been stashing it. And then I was like, I want to do one more neck thing. And then I started looking for things that I can make with 250 yards. And then I saw Sari is doing what she's calling like a capsule project this year. So every month she's like pulling things from her library. And one of the things that she was talking about this month was the poet scarf. And guess how many yards the poet scarf needs? Exactly 250. So I love knitting lace. I love knitting lace. So I cast on a poet scarf. I cast this on 2 days ago. So I've been working on this in the mornings before work. The rows are not terribly long, so they go fairly quickly. And I'm halfway through. So at this point, I'm now working decreases. So the rows are going to get shorter. And then this will be done, I mean, probably before I know it. Frankly, it took me 4 hours to knit all these increases. There's a new episode of Critical Role out. I bet you if I parked myself in front of the TV and just watched Critical Role, I could have this done before the episode is over. If I focus, which, you know, who knows. But I will say tracking my knitting time has actually been helping me focus. I don't deviate as much and I don't like wander. I actually do get my stuff done. So this is a poet scarf. This is my third and most likely final project for the neck thing make along, because I don't know that I will have any more time to make another neck thing in the time remaining in January. I don't even know what day is today. Yeah, in the time remaining in January, I don't think I'll have enough time to make another neck thing after I finish this. But it's really nice I've gotten 3 things done during the neck thing make along. I'm really excited about this. I'm thinking it's going to give, again, my aesthetic these days is a Boy Scout camp leader. So I'm hoping that like I can put the triangle over I'm going to knit, sorry, I'm interrupting myself. I'm going to knit like a slide. So my plan is to make the slide and then stick both ends of the slide and wear it like a little kerchief. And I love the lace. So working this lace is so much fun. Would I knit a sweater out of this? The devil is a whole liar. I would not. But working it in this smaller stitch count, it's so much fun. I will say I'm knitting this on 6s and not 4s because that's what Sari recommends. And I've heard that Sari's gauge is a liar. It's not a thing that I've run into because I have not knit any of Sari's textured patterns before. I'm knitting a colorwork yoke from Sari, and I almost always have to size up in the needle size that the designer recommends. So it didn't seem like a thing to me that I would have to size up in that one, but it seems like common feedback that Sari's gauge is hard to match. So I was like, I'm not even going to mess around. Also, knitting DK weight yarn on 4s doesn't seem like my idea of a good time. So I just sized all the way up to 6s, which is what my DK weight gauge is normally. I did measure this pre-blocking right now for the halfway point. It is 19 inches. And the pattern says when you're done, you should have a 40-inch scarf. So 20 inches halfway. And I'm assuming that once this blocks, this will grow out a little bit. And it's 11 inches wide and mine is 10.5. So even with sizing up, I'm close to what Sari recommends you get. Now, obviously this is unblocked, and as it blocks, it'll like, you know, stretch and expand a little bit, but I wouldn't mind it being longer. Again, I'm tall, I'm a long kid, but that is my poet scarf. This has been so much fun to work on. I'm really enjoying working on this, and playing with this yarn is a treat, and I do need to process this fleece and get this going. So next work in progress that I'm going to update you on is my Eva cardigan. So the last time you saw this, it was still, I had one of the sleeves still on the needles, and it needed to be blocked, and I needed to figure out the button band. So I have since finished my sleeves. So both of these sleeves are done, and I did block it. I blocked it to help me, one, figure out what I was going to do with my button band, and two, make sure that I was happy with the sleeve length before, I call this done. When I block it a second time, I am going to pin out my sleeves because I bound off knitwise. So it's 2x2 rib and you bind off knitwise. And I don't know if you can see that. I'm getting sort of like an hourglass situation on my sleeve, and I don't like that. So when I block it the second time, I am going to pin it out so that my sleeves kind of hang straight, but they are the perfect length. But I was going back and forth about what I wanted to do with the button band, and here's what I've decided. I've decided to steal the button band from the Paul cardigan. So the button band, this is the Eva cardigan by Petite Knit. This is the Eva cardigan by Petite Knit, and I'm knitting this in Pearl Sew Plain Air in the color Strawberry Field, and this yarn was gifted to me and Mia to make matching cardigans for our Barcelona trip. We went to Barcelona in November. It is January. I'm still working on this cardigan. I'm still very grateful with Pearl Sew for providing the yarn for this, and I'm really glad they did, because I don't know that I would have picked this color for myself if I hadn't was going through that library, and I'm really glad that I did, because I think this is a fun color. What was I saying? Oh, so after I blocked it, I was going back and forth. The Eva cardigan does have a 2x2 rib cardigan, 2x2 rib button band, but I didn't think I wanted that. And I was trying to decide if I wanted to do a full double knit button band or if I was just going to rib it. And then I remembered that I had the pattern for the Paul cardigan, which I'm planning on making. I showed you guys yarn for the Paul cardigan actually earlier this month. So I already had the pattern. And the Paul cardigan does this fun thing where between the shoulders, you do a 2x2 rib, and then you do your double knit button band. And here's the reason that I decided to do that for this. One, I wanted to practice that because a Paul cardigan is a much tighter gauge than this, and I wanted to practice that. But the real reason I did this is because Petite Knit does not give you the instructions for a double knit button band for this, and I was modding it. And my last double knit button band is okay. It's okay, but didn't go great. And my thought process for doing it this way is you do the button band in pieces. So you do the 2x2 rib, and it's a folded neckline. So you do the 2x2 rib, you fold it, you sew it down, and then you pick up stitches from the side of the 2x2 rib, and then you pick up your stitches down your, down your cardigan, and then you do your double knitting. And here's why I thought I was clever. If this goes wrong and I have to rip it out, it is not ripping out the entire button band. It is just ripping out one side of the button band. And I did the back and folded it over, and I picked up all my stitches, and I essentially did a third of my neckline in 2 hours. Because again, I now know how long things take me. So it stands to reason that it might take me another 2 hours to finish. I'm just at the place where you stopped increasing for your V-neck. So all I have left is the length of the body. This is what I have left. It stands to reason that it might take me another 2 hours to finish that. If I have to rip that out, that is 3 hours of work, and that is not as heartbreaking as if I knit the entire button band and then it's too short or I don't like it and I have to rip the entire thing out. That is my thought process. So my plan is to finish knitting this, and then I'm going to block it a second time, and I want to see where the button band is sitting. I'm knitting the side with no buttons first, obviously, and I'm going to block it. No buttonholes. I'm going to block it. I'm going to see where it's sitting and then make some decisions about whether I like it and I just do the other side the exact same way, or if I have to rip it back and pick up more stitches or less stitches. Right now, I've picked up 3 out of 4. So I've done a 75% stitch pickup rate. Again, because this is not written in the pattern, there are no real guidelines for how many stitches you should be picking up. The Paul cardigan is at a much tighter row gauge, and she has you pick up every stitch. I looked at the row gauge for the DRK Everyday cardigan, which was the other cardigan I knit with a button band, a double knit button band, and the row gauge is also tighter than this. So I picked up less stitches than both of those patterns told you to pick up. I think with the DRK Everyday cardigan, I did 9 out of 10, which is too many stitches. It's a touch too many. It's not a lot, but it's a touch too many. So that's 90%. So I went with 75% for this. And we'll see what happens. So my plan is to finish knitting this and then block it. And then if I like it, do the same thing. But again, because it's in pieces, I could just rip out this piece and then pick back up stitches and do it the same way. Versus again, if I had to do the whole thing and then block it and then see how it's hanging. Also, I do appreciate having this back here to sort of stabilize the cardigan. So this is going to be at the back neck, and I'm going to see if I can try to put it on. Hold on, I'll see if I can put it on. Okay, so here's what my Eva cardigan looks like. Yeah, here's what it looks like. The sleeve length is perfect. It is like right at my wrist bone, which is where I like my sleeves to sit. But you can sort of see, if you see what I mean, it's sort of like puckering a little bit. So I think if I block it so it hangs straight, that'll be what I want, because it is sort of like dipping in a little bit, and you can see that on both sides, but it is a good sleeve length. The body length is perfect. So here's where my hip is. It's essentially high hip. I did knit this a little bit longer than pattern, and I did knit the sleeves a little bit longer than pattern. Now I know that the sleeve length might be a little bit short for people, but for me, because I'm constantly rolling my sleeves up, this is perfect. Also, if my sleeves cover my watch, I get a little twitchy because I like to be able to like pick my wrist up and see my watch. But here's where my button band is. So I'm right at where you stop doing the V-neck increases, and then I just have to knit the length of it. I'm knitting the exact numbers that are in the Paul cardigan, and it is working out to a 2-inch button band, which is what I was hoping for. I was hoping for a 2-inch button band, and that's where we are. So here's how my Eva cardigan fits so far. I think it's a really good color. I'm really happy with it. It is a really, really good length, and it fits really well. Here's where it's gonna be like, put it about here to see what it'll look like buttoned. I have a fair bit of ease in it. It's comfortable. This yarn is really comfortable to wear. I'm really, really pleased. So yeah, here's where we are with my Eva. I'm hoping that by the next time you see me for like a full podcast episode, this is finished. But if I do have to rip out the button band, it will go in timeout. It will go in timeout. If it works, then it'll be full speed ahead, and we'll get this done. So my last work in progress is another test knit, and this is a test knit for Amy at the Knitting Friend. And I'm very glad that Amy in her infinite wisdom has extended the test knit, because it's technically due, and I'm not finished. But then she gave everybody an extra 2 weeks, and I will be finished by then. I think it's due today, actually. I think it's technically due today, and I'm not finished. I cast on when I should have, but I hate boucle. Hate is a strong word. I don't like boucle, and sometimes it was hard for me to motivate myself to get working on this when I was knitting it flat. It is now in the round, and I think it's gonna be much easier to work on. This is the cold front vest. And look, oh my God, it's so cute. It's so cute. It is gonna have a zipper. I've put some like light bulb stitch markers to help hold mine closed, because while I was knitting it, it was flopping around. But it is a either half zip or full zip boucle vest, and you hold boucle double with suri, and then you wear it reverse stockinette. So you're wearing it with the pearl bumps out, and it is, my gosh, every time I touch it, it's like a teddy bear. It's like wearing a teddy bear. But I just don't like working on it. I don't like working on it. But now that it's in the round, it is much easier. When I was doing it flat, and I can't read boucle. Like, I can't read my knitting to save my life. So I was doing some increases. I couldn't see what I was doing. I had no idea where I was going. I was just following the pattern and like I had to take really detailed notes on this every time I put it down, so I knew where I was in increases and decreases. So it's essentially like a drop shoulder vest. So you do the back, you pick up your fronts, and then you join it, and then the collar is a double fold ribbed collar in boucle, which is, my lord, the way I'm like learning and challenging myself these days. And what Amy has you do is when you're done with the fold, you like knit your stitch with the row underneath, instead of whip stitching it down. And the next time I make this, I will make this again. The next time I make it, I will be whip stitching it down. I will not be torturing myself that way, because I could not see my stitches. And I'm sure that like knitting with boucle is a skill like anything else. I don't have it. Yeah, so I have since knit my collar, and I've joined it in the round. I am 3 inches into my body. So I think I have, if I'm knitting this to pattern, I have 7 inches. No, I have 4 inches left, because you knit the body to 7 inches, and then you do your ribbing. And I will probably be knitting this to pattern, because I do love a crop. I love a crop, and I think a cropped teddy bear vest is the way to go for me. I don't know that I would wear it full length if I knit it any longer. I am debating putting a split hem on this. That is the one thing that the Lana vest did right for me, is it taught me that I like the split hem. I am debating putting a split hem on this, and actually after I finish the body and I try it on, I'm going to message Amy and ask Amy if she would mind if I put a split hem on mine. But I'm debating putting a split hem on this. I'll tell you the yarn that I'm using. So this is Explorer Knits and Fibers, her DK Boucle This is the Leave No Trace pack. So I have no idea what color this is. I have 4 balls, I have 4 skeins of this, and I'm not gonna use 4. I'm barely gonna use 3. My size says that you should need 650 yards. I am on stitch gauge. Row gauge in this is a myth. It is a myth. I've never met her because I can't count rows. I knit 2 swatches. My first swatch, I was just knitting like normal. And then I went and measured it. And then I went to try to count my rows. And I was just like, how? Like, how do you see your stitches? Like, what am I supposed to do here? So I knit a second swatch so I could actually count rows. And I'm off by 3 rows in my row gauge. Like, my rows are a little bit longer than Amy's. So I'm using less yarn for this, and I'm getting, like, I'm definitely gaining length faster for less yarn than I think Amy has you do, especially when I was doing the increases, because like the pattern gives you row counts and inch counts, and I was definitely knitting to inch counts because I realized very early on that my row counts did not match because my row gauge is off. I played myself. I was like, I always have to size up with like knitting. So I cast on my first swatch on 7s, and that was a joke. That was a mistake. So I've actually swatched for this pattern 3 times. I swatched because she has you knit on 6s, and I was like, I'm always a tight knitter. I'm just going to size up to see what happens. So I swatched on 7s. It was so big that I just ripped it out. I didn't even block it. And then I swatched on 6s, and I got stitch gauge, but then I couldn't count my row gauge. So then I swatched on 6s again and counted rows to see what I was getting. So I have 2 swatches essentially for this project, which is, again, I am pretty diligent, especially when it comes to test knitting, about my swatching and keeping notes, which is why the Lana vest is such a disappointment. This, on the other hand, this is a whole treat. And now that it's in the round, I love working on this. I was telling you about the yarn. So this is a Leave No Trace pack. So I have no idea what color it is. It is a blush pink. I have no idea what color it is. I'm sure there's an EKF head out there who's going to see this and know exactly what tonal this is, but I have no idea what this is. And my suri is my new favorite suri. It's Sire Soft Fine, which is suri and suri, silk, and wool. It's a Sire Soft Fine. I will put the content somewhere. Wow, my phone's talking to me. It's a Sire Soft Fine, so it's suri, and wool and silk, I think is what it is. And I'm holding these double for my fabric, and I'm getting just like this really warm taupe that I think is just going to be a really good color on me. Now that this is in the round, I'm really enjoying working on this. When it was knit flat, I was like, why does anybody knit with boucle? Like, why? There's no elastic, and then boucle held with suri, there's no elasticity in this at all. So it was really hard for me to figure out the tension. I think that also contributed to my row gauge because I was having trouble figuring out how to tension it because there's no elasticity in it. It's so squishy. It's so squishy. So this is now due in 2 weeks. I think I'll be done well before that. Like I said, I'm going to knit the body to 4 inches. I'm going to try it on, make sure I'm happy with that length. I'm going to send Amy a message in our Slack channel and ask her if she would mind if I do a split hem. And then it's just going to be doing some ribbing in boucle and then doing some ribbing on the armholes. And then this will be done. This will be done. And I'm really enjoying this. I can't wait to wear it. I think this is going to be a perfect transition piece. Also, this over like a baby tee with some jeans. Oh my God. And like on summer nights, this over a baby tee with some shorts. This is going to get so much wear. And frankly, once I get over how much I hated knitting this flat, I'm definitely going to make this in dark yarn. I'm like, could you imagine this in black? Oh, it would be so luxe. So luxe. So that's the knitting updates. I, for some reason, thought that this was going to be a shorter episode, and then I started talking and I realized I had a lot to say because I've been making a ton, and I've been making a ton because everything's bad. That's a short version. Everything's bad, and life is really hard these days, and so I've just been sitting and knitting and reading and just vibing. And to that end, let's talk about what I'm reading. So I'm going to attempt to do this every podcast episode. If I forget, someone remind me. But we're going to do Media Mayhem, where I talk to you about something I'm either reading, watching, or listening to, or maybe all 3. So this week, I finished Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I did listen to it with my ears. So I did an audiobook, and I listened to it while I was working on my Eva cardigan, while I was working on my poet scarf. I really enjoyed working on that. Those projects while listening to Everything is Tuberculosis. It was a 6-hour audiobook, so it was a pretty quick read. It's one of those things, like I work in healthcare, so I'm a nurse if you don't know, and I work in healthcare, but like American healthcare is so incredibly myopic, and it's really easy to forget like that American healthcare is not the be all. And also American healthcare is not even that great. I didn't realize tuberculosis was as bad as it still is. I was just like, this is the thing we've dealt with. And then I listened to this book and I was like, oh no, we are in hell. This is not a thing that we've dealt with at all. So then I went down the rabbit hole of doing a bunch of research into like organizations that support tuberculosis research and tuberculosis care. And trying to figure out what I can do to like bolster this. And then I went to my medical director with like a flow chart of things that we could do to support TB research and care abroad, because that is the type of person I am, because I care a lot about people being well. It was a really good book. I'm a huge John Green fan. I read Looking for Alaska. I read The Fault in Our Stars. I've been reading John Green since I was like a wee tyke. I was reading YA when I was the appropriate age to be reading YA. And it was really cool to read nonfiction from him. And he also did the narration, so it was cool to listen to his voice. I highly recommend it. It was, again, a quick read, 6 hours. It did a really good job of humanizing a really vicious disease while also just slapping you over the head with stats. And I do enjoy books that like frame healthcare issues from a systemic place. Like a lot of people, I think, forget that a lot of our issues with care and with health and with wellness are not necessarily issues, or not necessarily solely issues of disease and bacteria and viruses, but they're also like sociological issues, and there are systemic issues, and there are issues rooted in inequality. And I thought the book did a really good job of marrying both of those ideas. So I really enjoyed that. And I finished that, and I immediately went back to my TJ Klune read, because I never finished Under the Whispering Door, and I don't know why, but I've just been sort of like listening to audiobooks and doing, and working on my knitting these days. And so that's what I've been reading. And I realized that I'm super late to the party, but I'm obsessed with Olivia Dean. I realized that I'm super late to the party. I love her. I love her music. I'm a huge Motown head. My mom woke my siblings and I up on Saturday morning by playing The Temptations, and we knew that it was time to get up and clean the apartment once the Temptations. So if you woke up on a Saturday and you heard like My Girl playing, like you got up, you brushed your teeth, and like it's like, all right, time to do some chores. And so I was raised on Motown. I played Motown at home all the time. I love Motown's like sound. I love Leon Bridges. I love the Teskey Brothers. I love music that gives me that like that nostalgic sort of soul Motown feeling. So when I heard The Man I Need by Olivia Dean, I was like, oh, what is this? Like, wait, what? What is that? That is scratching all my itches. And then there's the Minute song that I'm blanking on the name of it. Literally, I listen to it like every day on my way to work. And I am still deep in the heated rivalry cult. Guys, don't worry. I have not found my way out. This fandom is a prison, and the collective psychosis that is happening on the internet should be studied for years to come, because none of us are well. But I've been coming across a bunch of heated rivalry edits to Olivia Dean songs. Oh my God. The first thing that happened was I saw heated rivalry edits to Noah Kahan songs. And if you are familiar with Noah Kahan work, no one should be putting heated rivalry, like no one should be putting Holanov over Noah Kahan unless they just don't like themselves. And then putting that out for the rest of us to see. Why do y'all hate me? So I, at one point, was just in my bed watching the same Holanov edit to Pain is Cold Water on repeat, crying like a lunatic. And then an Olivia Dean one popped up. Oh my God, there's one by Sienna Spiro, To Die on This Hill. I should not be allowed to have TikTok. That's especially not at 3 a.m. when I should be sleeping. But the bottom line is I am having a ton of fun listening to Olivia Dean. If you haven't checked out her music, it's great. It's great. It's great feel-good music. I love this cool thing that's happening in pop right now where it's like sort of like restrained. Almost like it's not super like high, like it's not very synthy. It's very just like big, beautiful vocals and like space for lyrics to sort of like take up room, and like, I love it. Also, Noah Kahan has been teasing us with another album, and give it to us. Give it to me now. I'm ready for my feelings to be hurt. So that's Media Mayhem. And the thing that sparks joy these days is solo journaling. I've been playing a lot of solo journaling RPGs. I'll show you my journaling pouch. Hold on. So this is my journaling pouch that I take with me to cafes to go play solo RPGs, like solo journaling RPG. One of my friends gave me a solo journaling RPG as a place to start. I talked about this in December, but my D&D game is over. My DM is currently like working on moving out of New York City, so we're not starting a new game. And until I get ready to run my game, I have no D&D. So I've been thinking about ways to fixed that, and the people who love me gave me a very thoughtful gift and set me up with a solo journaling RPG, which I did not know was a thing, but then I went down the rabbit hole of solo journaling RPGs, and I'm a stationery head. I love paper. I love paper and I love pens, and I already had pretty much everything that I needed for that. So I've been playing a solo journal. I've been playing two. One of the ones I've been playing is called The Librarian's Apprentice. So you play as a librarian's apprentice. You essentially roll dice and pick cards to get prompts. And then you can write as much or as little you want about your journey through the library. And the game ends when you find the artifact that you're looking for. And I've also been playing the Magus. And this is actually my Magus book. I'm using Tomoe River paper. And here's all of, well, I don't know if you can see that. Here's like, no, I always forget that you can't see anything with my lights, but like back here, this is just my origin story for my Magus character. I haven't even started the game, but you essentially play a wizard who comes into power, and it is supposed to be a dark and tragic story. So you have to be like lined up and ready to like deal with your feelings. And if you're not in a place to deal with your feelings, don't play this game. But essentially the game ends when you either have a calamity and you die, or you give up magic, and you have to go through multiple events to get to the place where either something terrible happens, and you suffer, or people suffer, or both. So my character's name is Fira, and they came from a family where their father left this like long, prestigious lineage of magicians, of wizards, to be with their mother. And their mother died in childbirth. So their father raised them. You know, their father got disowned and raised them. And no one expected Fira to demonstrate magic, because it was just like, this is like a matrilineal lineage, and Fira's mom should not have had magic, but somehow Fira did have magic. So eventually Fira's dad sent them to live with their grandmother to learn, but Fira's too good at magic, and Fira's so good at magic that everyone's afraid of Fira's magic. And so they, in an effort to protect their dad from them, they leave home and they start their journey. So that is like, so they give you prompts like, what's magic like in your world? And you have to like write about what magic is like in your world. And it's like, what is the thing that happens to you that sends you on your adventure? And how do the people that you leave feel about it? And so that's what I've been writing. And now I'm ready to start Fira's adventure, and we'll see what happens. But this is my journaling pouch. I have essentially everything I need in here to play my game. So like some of the games, like I keep a set of like polyhedral dice, so like a D20, a D12, a D6, whatever. Some of the games have you just stack D6s. So I have a bunch of D6s in here. I have a mini pack of tarot cards, because one of the games requires you, the Librarian's Apprentice requires you to have tarot cards and playing cards. So I keep essentially everything that I need in here. There's a bunch of other stuff in here that we will like, I mean, if you guys are interested, maybe I could show you what's in my journaling pouch, but there's a bunch of other stuff that's in here. I keep all of my, I have some zebra 0.5 millimeter. I never write with anything larger than a 0.5 millimeter pen. I'm a snob. I have some 0.5 millimeter pens in here. I have my mile liners in here. I essentially have everything that I would need. And then this just goes in my bag of the day. And then after work, I park myself at a cafe and I write for entirely too long. I sit with my headphones, I get a tea, and I write for entirely too long. So this is the thing that's been sparking joy for me. I used to have a really robust creative writing practice. And then there's no real reason why I stopped writing. There's really no real reason I stopped writing. I just stopped writing. And it's really nice to be back at it. I did not expect this to spark as much joy and spark as much of a creative writing practice for me again, but it did, to the point that I'm now journaling on a daily basis again, because I've just been writing and I forgot how nice it was to put pen to paper and just get it out. So if you're looking for a thing to do, if you like playing RPGs and you don't have a table, even if you just want time to sit with yourself and you want a solo hobby, obviously it doesn't require this much work. You can just use a composition notebook and a pen. You don't have to be a lunatic like I am. But I recommend looking up solo journaling RPGs. There is a subreddit with a bunch of them. And if you guys want me to talk more about it, I can talk more about my character's adventures and what I'm doing. So I'm playing this. I'm playing The Librarian's Apprentice. I have the Cozy Tea Shop, the Littlest Tea Shop. Either the Littlest Tea Shop or Cozy Tea Shop on deck. And that one I'm only going to be playing in a cafe because I think it's very on brand to take my game about a tea shop to a tea shop. And I have Koriko. So I have a few games lined up, and I'm probably going to play them all at the same time and just set up different notebooks for them. So I have this book. I have a Traveler's Notebook cover that I have multiple A5 notebooks in. And I'm just going to, like, again, sit and write and sort of get the get the words out of my head in a way that feels constructive. I find that like I've been sleeping better now that I've been like writing at night. Like I journal every night. I pull 2 tarot cards and then I do some journaling every night, and I've been sleeping better. And all of that came from picking this back up. So if I want to talk about a thing that sparks joy, some solo journaling RPGs and having a writing practice again is that thing. Okay, that's it. I don't know why I thought this was gonna be short. This is gonna be so long. This is gonna be so long, but that's all I have for you today. If you've made it to the end, thank you so much for hanging out with me. All the places you can find me are, as always, linked in the description box. My Instagram, my Ravelry, if you want details on some of my projects, my Discord server, everywhere you can find me online is going to be there. My affiliate links are thrown down there if you want to find a way, if you want to support the channel, and if you want to like buy me a coffee, the link to my Ko-Fi is down there. The next time you see me, I'll be doing my first pedal party. I've been talking to like Mia and to Joshua about streamlining my channel so that I can make things in a way that, so one, I can batch content so I can work on things ahead of time, and so also that I'm not making the same things over and over, so that I can make things that I think are interesting, that hopefully that you think are interesting. So the next time I'll see you for the January pedal party. And until then, I love you. Go make something fun today.